Hello and welcome back, or welcome to Noggin Comics. I'm Kyle, and today we have a guest on the channel, a guest you may be familiar with, Brandon from Dismay Comics.
Thank you for having me, man. Glad to
Yeah.
be back.
So, for those who haven't seen you in the last couple months, how have things been?
Things have been pretty good. They've been busy because basically as soon as I shipped out all of the Gallows Man number 1 and 2 stuff, I was like, okay, now to start preparing for Dismay Avenue 1 and 2 Kickstarter. I'm glad I finally did it. This is like a Kickstarter that I've been meaning to do for like the past 2 years, but I just kept pushing it off and kept drawing focus towards the Gallows Man when I was like, you know what, I need to have some focus on my horror stuff. So I'm glad I got back into it. So it's been pretty good.
Well, yeah, no, I see. So that actually brings me to a question I was gonna ask. Now that you kind of mentioned, I want to get to it. Dismay Avenue and the Gallows Man are two totally separate genres. So, what do you enjoy more writing out of the two?
Uh, I enjoy writing both of them. Like I'm going to try not to do a cop out answer or indecisive answer. I enjoy writing both of them about the same. When it comes to horror, it's the easiest thing for me to write because I grew up on horror and like I just know horror. Not saying I'm like good or great or anything like that at writing horror. It's just the thing that like I can write a horror script quicker than any other genre for me. Um, but I do really like writing stuff like The Gallows Man. It's stuff like that. Uh, like both require like me mentally to be there to write it, but something like The Gallows Man or something a different genre or whatever that I'm writing, it's a lot more challenging for me because it's the horror stuff is almost like my comfort writing. It's like I can if I'm in a roadblock or whatever, boom, switch over to this horror thing, get some horror scripts out. But I don't know. I think I enjoy both of them. I'd probably say I do enjoy writing stuff like The Gallows Man or some of the other genres. Like I'll have some comics come out over the next year or two that I'm currently working on. um, I like writing those a lot because of how much of a challenge it is for me compared to horror. But I still love writing horror stuff.
So you like to take that challenge, and like if
Yeah,
you
yeah,
need to step back a little bit, hey, let me go back to horror right now.
exactly. That's exactly
Uh,
it.
so growing up on horror, what was your main comfort, I should say, like your favorite writer, your favorite film growing up?
It's not your typical horror, but the thing that I loved, like from around like late middle school, I just got sucked into it. Like I watched horror basically all throughout my life, but the thing when it came to writing and writing horror and stuff was Rod Serling's The Twilight Zone, like the 1960s Twilight Zone. Like I love that show. And Rod Serling to me is a genius when it comes to writing, especially writing short stories, because the Twilight Zone, most episodes 22 minutes long, basically, other than season 4, which turned into hour-long episodes,
Mm.
which is all right. But uh, yeah, I've always seen him as like kind of the master of the short horror slash sci-fi
Mm.
storytelling.
Yeah, I kind of get that in Dismay Avenue too. It does have that quickness. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, thank you.
I mean, Dismay Avenue number one is like that hour long
Yeah.
episode, and then goes into the 20-minute. Um, so yeah, thank you for sharing the advanced copy of one and
Yeah,
two of
thank
Dismay
you, man.
Avenue. Uh, if you had to describe it and sell it to somebody that did not read the advanced copy, how would you sell it to them?
So I'd basically say the best way to describe this series, at least these first 2 issues, is psychological and cosmic horror is a big thing with these first 2 issues, their stories and stuff. The first issue, that's also something to mention, is as the series goes along, because there will be more issues after issue 2. As the series goes along, you can pick up any issue and not feel lost, because each issue will have a self-contained story or stories. In the case of like issue 2, issue 2 has 4 stories. Issue 1 has 1 story. You can just pick it up and enjoy it without having to go back or look at an editor's note within the issue and be like, go back to issue 365 to see what happened here or whatever. You don't have to worry about that. Each issue is self-contained. And ultimately with issue 1, it follows two characters, Ben and Mia, who go on a date night at a movie theater that's kind of just in the middle. It's outside of their town, and it's a big movie theater, but it's like no one's in the parking lot. It's pretty dead inside. Like it's just the 2 concessions girl and some kind of shady guy in a hood. You can't see his face or anything. Like he's wearing a hoodie. They're a little bit sketched out about it, but they're like, let's go on a date night. And weird stuff ensues as this movie date night goes along. Issue 2 is a little bit different. It's got 4 different stories, all very different art styles. The first story is very much like manga, Junji Ito horror type art style. The story fits very well with that as well. It's very much like a Junji Ito story. I'm not saying I'm anywhere near Junji Ito. This is Brandon almost just like, oh, I'm such a fan of Junji Ito. Here's my Junji Ito story or whatever.
I was going to ask if there was some influence. That's Tolls the Bells.
Right? Yeah, Tolls the Bells, yeah.
Is there, so that must have been the influence to having that manga style, like you wanted that, right?
Oh, yeah. Because I, at that point when I was writing it, I was getting into manga because I wrote that back in around 2017. That's when I was getting into manga. And Junji Ito was like the first thing I was reading, like Uzumaki, Tomei, Gyo. Like I loved all those, but I really wanted like Uzumaki type art style. And Federico Matriglio like killed it with that. But the other 3 stories, the second story is sorry, I'm blanking. Raw horror. It's very like dreamlike, atmospheric, and the story follows along with that. Third story is more like your contemporary, modern comic art style, but still very beautiful. And the fourth one is like a Dr. Seuss-esque art style, because that was very fitting for the story. But yeah, like each of the stories, the first one, the Tolls the Bells, that one is little boy has to stay after class one day and crazy stuff ensues from there. Try not to spoil much. The second one, you have raw horror. A guy in the army wakes up. He wakes up at his house, and he's very confused and just having to kind of navigate the house and speaking with his wife and stuff like that. Third story, Destination. A little girl goes to a thrift shop with her mom. She finds this kind of weird musical triangle at the thrift shop. And basically that triangle can send you, by dinging it, can send you to other time periods and or dimensions. So again, crazy stuff ensues from there. And the fourth one, Acolyte, the Dr. Seuss-esque art style, that one follows a guy named Mr. Hinklehorn. It starts out almost feeling like a cartoonish Dr. Seuss-esque story, but Mr. Hinklehorn he's a bit odd as he's dealing, like, people give him a lot of crap throughout the day, and he just responds by like, oh, have a great day, or thank you, sir. Like, you're just like, something's off with this guy. And as it goes along, you get to know a little bit more about the dark side of Mr. Hinklehorn. But those are kind of the stories within these comics.
Yeah, if I could explain Acolyte to anybody in a weird comparison, I would say if Office Space became a horror film. because that guy reminded me of Milton for some reason. I don't know.
I can see that. Yeah.
But yeah, I actually now I want to work backwards here with those
Yeah.
those 4 stories. Helen Bolton did the work on Acolyte, and being reading Gallows Man, I kind of feel like that could fit in that universe.
Yeah.
Was that something that you had planned to kind of have that like parallel?
Not entirely. This was actually the first comic I did with Helen was Acolyte. I did Acolyte with Helen, and because I was trying to find someone. This was when I was like scouring DeviantArt back in 2019 for artists and stuff. I found Helen, and I was specifically looking for someone that could do like a Dr. Seuss-esque art style. And I saw some of her stuff was similar to what I was looking for. And then I commissioned her to do a couple concept pages and stuff. And I was like, okay, yes, you're perfect for it. She did that. Then I hired her later on to do Gallows Man. And in the middle of doing issue 1, I hired her to do the 1-page comic in Dismay Avenue #1, Alternate Reality. It's just a 1-page comic. There's no dialogue. It's simply, what if trees and it's an alternate dimension. What if trees and humans switch places, where you have sentient trees and humans aren't sentient? They're like trees, basically. Very dumb concept from me and my buddy, but she did great there. And then she's been working on the Gallows Man since.
Yeah, I kind of feel like you guys have become like that. You know how every comic, publication has a team. Kind of feel like you guys have become that team now.
It really has been that way, because I love working with all the artists, but she's the one that, like, I don't know, she like rarely do I have to send editor's notes to her. And not saying that's a problem. I don't mind sending editor's notes to artists, but like, she just gets it. Like, she sees the page, the script, she puts the art out. I'm like, holy crap, like, you got it. Plus, it looks a lot better than my dumb mind was thinking when writing it. So great job.
Well, yeah, and that gets me to another question. Be jumping around, but to another question is, how is it difficult to work with different artists on one book?
No, really, like, all of the artists were very great to work with. And this isn't even a problem. The only one, Federico, there was a delay in doing the book, but he had told me before we even started on the book, like, hey, like, there's going to be like a 6-month span where I'm working on this other project, but once I'm done, I can work on this project. I was like, yeah, that's no problem. And that's not even an issue. So like thinking about, was there any complications working with these different artists? No, like they all got it and just knocked it out of the park each time.
And with Federico, the character designs, was that you or him that came up with those? Because the ice cream man was creepy.
Oh yeah. So at the time, I basically wrote out the way I wanted the ice cream person to look and all that stuff. At the time, that's around the time the Image horror comic Ice Cream Man came out.
Yeah.
And I was reading that, and it was extremely creepy. And I'd also watched, like, a couple years before that, like, some Ice Cream Man horror movies. Like, there's one, I think it's just called The Ice Cream Man. I can't remember. It was made in like the 80s or 90s. And I just always, yep. I just always saw like the stereotypical ice cream man with the white, kind of like narrow hat and all that. I just always saw that as like kind of creepy. And Ice Cream Man, the comic, exemplified that. It was like, yes, they are creepy. I was like, okay, I've been confirmed. So now, one of the villains or things within this story, it's going to be an ice cream man.
Yeah, that's one thing I wrote down. I'm like, these character designs, I want to ask if that was from Brandon's mind or the creators.
Specifically the ice cream man, I gave like instruction of what should be the typical hat, as well as I would send different Google images of like, have it look similar to this, like have the shirt or whatever look similar to this. So I do give feedback on that, but ultimately they bring it all together where it's like, oh yes, that looks great.
Yeah, and then that brings us to Jade Skye, who did the first one as well. And I kind of feel like with Helen, you guys are a team too, in a way, because the way
Yeah.
the dialogue and the story kind of matched the artwork. I felt. Um, how is it working with Jade? 'Cause I feel like their artwork is different from most of the other people.
Yeah, ultimately, the first comic I worked with her on was Raw Horror in issue 2, and that was like honestly the first comic I ever like made. That 8-page comic, it was the first one that was ever made. All these others followed suit, but but yeah, it was kind of, it was different because, like you said, her art style is very atmospheric and dreamlike. But with that 8-page one, when I wrote the script, I had that atmospheric, dreamlike art style in mind. So when I found her on DeviantArt, I was like, yes, perfect fit. She worked perfectly with that. And then once she was done with that, I was like, I've got this longer script. It'll probably take up a whole issue. Would you want to do that? And I commissioned her to do that, and she did amazing on that program in issue 1 of Dismay Avenue. And yeah, that one, this will happen sometimes when I work with artists is you'll see your dialogue or whatever on the page, and most of the time it'll work, but sometimes you're like, the art is so good, I need to change up this dialogue because it's not really fitting. So there'll be little edits like that where it's like, I need to switch up the way the character says this because it doesn't fit the way the art is, and it would discredit the art. Like, I'm not saying it's the other way. It's like, no, I need it to go with the art because the art is so great.
So I want to share the second page of the
Yeah.
first book here. Um, so the whole cinema, the Blanking Marquee, staying on the topic of, was this your idea or the creators? Was this your idea or Jay's? Because this set the tone for me.
The Blanking Marquee was actually Jade's idea. And I was
Okay.
like, that is such a genius idea. I did have the idea of have one of the letters like out and like that basically be it. But no, like the Blinking Marquee, I loved that. I was like, yes, that's perfect. So that was
If
her idea.
honestly, this is what I would use to sell this book to a friend.
Yeah.
Nora, my partner. I told him, like, you gotta look at this panel. I'm like, doesn't it not just capture the tone right from the start? And she was like,
Yeah.
I gotta read it now. But yeah, that is Jay's artwork, and I hope that we get Jade on more books because I just
Yes,
love the art style.
seriously.
So, yeah, and let me go. So I'm scrolling through issue 2 right
No
now.
problem.
Yeah, you could probably see it in the corner. The one thing I gotta admit though is I'm not a digital reader. I love I love it physical. I'm
the same way.
I can't wait to get this in physical format because I know that art's gonna pop.
Yeah, I've
And
got issue 1 right here. I haven't printed issue 2 yet, which I'm going to print a lot more of issue 1s, but this is just one I can have. But yeah, it looks good. I'm going to go through the same printer. It looks really nice.
is it the same printer as Gallows Man?
It's not. So with Gallows Man, I go through, and if anyone who's making comics really wants to know these, hit me up on Instagram or whatever, and I can send you their info. I sometimes forget these names. I'm pretty sure it's Image Now by Mahar is what it's called. I found out about it through a couple years ago through someone else's Kickstarter. I was scrolling through and saw they used them, contacted them. It was a cheaper price than the one I used for Dismay Avenue, but also it fit perfectly with the Gallows Man because, not saying they have a lesser quality, but it's more they have a more retro look to their printing, and it works perfectly with the Gallows Man. like, yes, I use Comics Wellspring for Dismay Avenue. That's one of the most popular on-demand printing things for indie comics is Comics Wellspring, because it's cheap and they have great quality. But yeah, I used Image by Mahar because I just love the look of the book. Like, already I'm going for that Silver Age, Golden Age style.
Yeah.
And with it looking a little bit more retro, like with the paper quality, I was like, yeah, that's perfect. But Comics Wellspring is who I'm using for Dismay Avenue 1 and 2, because their colors are brighter and pop more. And that's very important, especially for something like Program, because it's kind of darker.
Yeah.
And it needs, whenever there's colors, like the first page and stuff, like the cinema page and stuff, those colors need to pop, and so they're able to do that very well.
Well, yeah, that whole issue needs to pop. There's certain times where, like, that, I don't want to spoil anything, but the screen, that plays a background a lot. So, and in issue 1, you do talk about the inspiration of Program. Now, do all of these stories have some type of inspiration behind them?
Oh yeah,
like some type of life. So,
yeah, in the second issue,
I'm afraid to ask what tolls the bells.
Well, in that degree, not entirely. The first story, it's like, yeah, the first third of this book is like a true story. Mm-hmm. It's different characters, but it's basically me and a girl went on a date after college classes one day, and the first third of the story plays out exactly how it did on the date. But then it doesn't go the super creepy route that the story does. When it comes to issue 2, let's see, I'm pretty sure none of those happened. I don't think I've found a musical triangle that sent me to other dimensions yet. So
that must not, if you did, it was a long night.
Yeah, there's like little things that inspire me here and there, though. Like with something like Destination, the musical triangle one. Like, I grew up going to thrift shops and stuff a lot, and I'd find weird random stuff at thrift shops and stuff. So it's just like, like, what if you just found this weird mystical object in a thrift shop? And so there's little nuggets here and there that are influenced by real life. But
all right, yeah, I was reading that. I'm like reading issue 2. I'm like, okay, I knew you mentioned issue 1 was inspired, but like, what is causing these 4 issues right now? 4 stories. So you mentioned that these tales are created between 2017 and 2019. Issue 2, right? And you have a third one planned?
Yeah, I've got scripts for, as of right now, up to issue 7. Now, that's not saying there won't be more than 7 issues, but I mean, I've got scripts planned that far ahead to where right before this show, I was working on, was reading back through scripts for issue 4 or 5 and trying to decide which of those scripts will go, if it'll be issue 4, issue 5, deciding on that. But yeah.
Like you said, it doesn't need to be all the same story. It could just be read anytime.
Exactly, because the main reason I was thinking about it, this isn't a huge spoiler or anything, but one of the issues will be like all horror comedy stories. Basically, it'll be 3 horror comedies. And I was trying to decide if I should put that at issue 4 or make that issue 5. And I'm just deciding on that right now.
Now, I would assume that the pandemic influenced some of these stories coming out.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, that was a horror story for all of us. So
yeah.
All right. So you said that we haven't mentioned it yet, but 24 minutes in, and we haven't mentioned that one this goes live, and this goes live.
October 18th.
October 18th.
Likely. I know this sounds awful. The specific time will likely be like 6 p.m. October 18th. I need to nail down a time. I've done morning launches before and they do good, but I've heard recently that late afternoon launches do better. So
after work, people.
Yeah, exactly. Which makes perfect sense. But for some reason, I was just like, just start it at the day when people can't access it.
Only if Marvel could start doing that, not early release it. So did you have that plan to do it during October to release your horror anthology in spooky
Yeah.
season?
So I originally thought about doing both of these issues last October, but I was so caught up with my real job, like, I'm not saying this isn't a job, but like the job that brings in the money, basically.
The
Uh,
non-fulfilling job.
it's fulfilling, but I also do love like making comics and stuff. But so I was busy with that, plus working on the Gallows Man, because Gallows Man #1 did so well that I wanted to make sure that issue 2 did very well when that Kickstarter hit and stuff. So I was very, very heavily working on that. And it was around the time I was doing Gallows Man issue 2, that Kickstarter, like a few months back, I was saying on maybe your show or maybe like Manny's show or something, I was like, Dismay Avenue 1 and 2, my horror anthology series, that Kickstarter will come out this October. I basically forced myself by saying that to get it out, because the comics were done. The comics were done at that point. It was just like, you got to work on a Kickstarter, Brand. Just do it. Just do it. Just do the small editing pages that you have to do and just make it. And it just took that kick in the butt by announcing it live for me to actually do it. So I forced myself to do October, and yeah, it was deliberate because it's spooky season. People will be more interested in it at that time.
I mean, I'm on Kickstarter, I hate to say it, almost every day, looking at new books. And the books I've backed have been all horror books the last month. So,
yeah.
All right. So we only got 2 questions left, surprisingly. Kind of flying through this. So with this, with 1 and 2 of Dismay Avenue and 1 and 2 of Gallows Man, you have about 60+ page books, including the cover.
Yeah.
Is that something that you want to continue doing now with all your books?
It's one of those things where it's somewhat deliberate and somewhat not. I do like to have more than just a 22-page book. I don't know. As a Kickstarter, it's just like from Dismay Avenue, you will get likely, unless something happens in the future, likely no more than 3 Kickstarters a year. So it just, I don't know. It just seems weird to have a 22-page book come out and then, okay, let's wait another 4 or 5 months. He put out another 22-page book. Even if they're good, it's just like, I don't know. I want to add a little bit more so that you're like, oh, like, okay, it kind of justifies the time and stuff like that. That, as well as I don't like to restrict the pages. Like if it seems like the story needs to breathe out some more, like if from this page to this page, it seems like there's way too much crap in it. It's like, no. We need to stretch this into like 4 pages. Let it breathe so it doesn't feel
Like
so
program.
jam-packed. Yeah.
Because I remember when I got the Gallows Man home, when I got the physical copies, I'm like, this is a thick book.
Yeah. It's a thick book. You could roll it up and beat someone with it.
But even Nora's like, oops, sorry about that. Yeah, so when that came, Nora's like, is that a trade? I'm like, no, this is a single issue. So, and then you mentioned making the book breathe, and I think that was perfect for issue 1, because, like you said, you kind of have to build up that suspense.
Yeah.
And I would say, well, the destination is the same way. You kind of have to build up that suspense.
Yeah.
And I feel like giving that, area to breathe really helped with that. And let's talk about the Kickstarter information. We just said that it's coming out. The drops October 18th through November 18th. What does the tiers look like for that?
So there's pretty much tiers ranging from $1 to, let me go to the Kickstarter, make sure I get the last tier right, from $1 to $60. That's what the tiers are looking like. The $1 one is simply we'll add your name to our thank you post on Facebook and Instagram and stuff, and it works up from there. So there's literally a tier for any budget. Any budget, there's a tier. You can get the digital copy of issue 1 for $5. You can get digital copy of both issues, which is over 100 pages of comics, for $9. And then from there, you can get physical copies. You can get a exclusive T-shirt, exclusive Dismay Avenue T-shirt that I am very excited / proud of. I'm looking forward to me getting one. I really want to wear it, as well as other people have it. It's the Kickstarter logo. Like, if people go to the pre-launch page, or if you go to the Kickstarter page now, that logo, I basically fit it perfectly for a shirt. Got rid of like the black coloring with it, and it just, I don't know. I love it. It basically looks like the kid is like coming through your chest. It looks awesome.
Is that the from the first story?
Yeah, from Tolls the Bells. Yeah.
That no spoilers, like we mentioned, but that's creepy.
Yeah, but that T-shirt is one tier. There's also like complete bundle tiers where you can get like both books, issue 1 and 2, signed, sticker sets and stuff like that. You can get both books have variant covers, so you can get both books, their variant covers, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And it leads all the way to like a creator value bundle where you can get a consultation Zoom call with me, where I can do some script consultation with you, and you can send your script to me before the consultation. I'll look through it, and we'll go over some notes that I have about it. But you get that, all the other stuff, like variant covers, all that stuff, as well as the scripts for the story, so you can see if I'm a good writer or a crappy writer. That's up to you. But yeah, there's all kinds of tier for everyone. I do also want to mention there's backer giveaways. So try to encourage people to bring more backers on, because that can also help them. That 25 and 50 backer giveaway. Sorry. They are the Gallows Man #2 sticker and bookmark set. That's all of them right there.
I have them all over my room right now.
Yeah. So that's the 25 and 50 backer giveaway. The 75 backer giveaway, that's what I want to get to. I want to get to 75 backers with this Kickstarter. Is that set plus an original piece by Thomas Tikas, who did the cover art for all 4 issues of The Gallows Man. And this original piece basically has Newsboy chasing down this, it's up to you, town citizen or mobster. I think mobster, chasing him down through the streets with a giant like battle axe, basically ready to ensue Newsboy's type of justice. But yeah, this is it's a beautifully penciled and inked page. One lucky backer, once we hit, I'm not even going to say if, once we hit 75, when we hit 75 backers, one lucky backer will receive this with their order.
Is that by Helen or someone else?
This is by Thomas Tikas. He's the guy that did the cover art for all 4 issues of The Gallows Man.
Okay. And that's coming back too, right?
Yeah. Gallows Man #3, that Kickstarter, I would like to do it more than once a year, but me and Helen are like very busy with our lives. So likely the latest, the 3rd issue Kickstarter will be May of 2023, possibly be earlier, but no later than May 2023.
And then do you have any comic shows or conventions coming up soon?
Yeah, I finally am getting into that. I wanted to build the teeniest tiny portfolio, so I didn't just show up with like a hey, not even one book. Like, all I've got is this card that says, hey, I've got a Kickstarter coming out in a few months. I wanted to have basically these 4 books: Gallows Man, Gallows Man 2, Dismay Avenue #1, Dismay Avenue #2, as well as like all the different merch stuff, bookmarks, stickers, all that stuff. And I also have a bunch of other stuff. I wanted to just have stuff there to look the most professional that this idiot can look. So the first show I'll be at is Fan Expo New Orleans. That's January 6th to 8th. So all of this is 2023, I should mention.
Yeah.
For those listening, I'm not going to be at any shows in 2022. 2023, January 6th to 8th, there'll be Fan Expo New Orleans. I have to look again. There's one in January or February that's like in the middle of Georgia. I'll be at it's like a 1-day Saturday one. It's perfect for me in terms of cost and stuff.
And those are the easiest to run.
Yes. From what I heard, like running them as well as having a booth there is just kind of perfect because the biggest thing, I don't have to do hotel costs and stuff. I don't have to pay for hotels. I can just drive there, even though it's like a 4 to 5 hour drive there, drive back. If I want to stay one night, I can, but I'm not paying like 3 nights of hotel expense. So there's that. But I'll figure out the name eventually. And then from February 24th to 26th, I'll be at Pensacon, which is in Pensacola, Florida. That's the closest one to me. All other conventions are like 3 hours or more away from me. And then maybe MegaCon, if they accept me. Maybe MegaCon. Also figuring out the whole hotel expense thing with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's at least in the first half of 2023, I'll be at 4 to 5 shows.
Perfect. I have a friend who he's been a vendor at Fan Expo in New Orleans. He's been trying to get us to come down to that show. He's like, it is the funnest show you go to all year.
Awesome.
So,
yeah, I've already paid the deposit, so it's not like I can back out now. Like you don't get refunded.
No.
But I've been 50-50 on it. I've been like, oh, it's going to be great. And then sometimes I'll have the thought of like, oh, I don't know. But the past month, I've been hearing a lot of great things about it. So looking forward to it.
I heard this is a giant party, basically.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
If you enjoy being around the craziness, then that's the show to go to, supposedly.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, it's experience too, especially like a show like MegaCon. So, but yeah, do you have any final words to get people to come onto the Kickstarter and back Dismay Avenue?
I'd say if you're looking for some horror stories that are a little bit different than what you're usually see in comics, stories that mostly focus on like a psychological or cosmic level, that form of horror, I'd say definitely jump in on this. Again, like I mentioned with the different tiers, there's a tier for everyone. You can get both of these books digitally for less than $10. And you can get both books physically for not a lot of money, especially when you compare to other Kickstarters. Not trying to do that, but I try to keep it fairly cost effective for people, because I'm just trying to print these books. Like at the end of the day, I'm not making a profit on any of this. I'm just trying to print these books and just get them out to people. Print these books, get them out to people, because the books are done. Like the books are completely done. I've already paid artists, all that stuff. This is simply for people to get them and for me to print these books and get it to them. And also to incentivize a little bit. If you're like, oh, but I'll just wait till he puts it on an online shop or whatever to buy. These books aren't going on an online shop for, I'll say, years, likely a few years. Like I'm not planning on doing an online shop anytime soon. And it's probably the dumb business model, but I'm a dumb guy in his 20s, so that's fitting. I like to have these Kickstarters kind of be like an event, kind of like you get in on the ground floor, you got it, you had a month to do it up. But if you got it, it's like, oh yes, I got in. I don't know. I like it to feel more like an event rather than, no offense, Boom Studios, having a Kickstarter for Berserker and then, oh, I can just get Berserker in the comic shops. And I paid a crap ton of money on the Kickstarter, but I could have just got it for $4 or $5 in the comic shop.
Nocterra is another one that did that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally, I get that. There's been times that we've backed the book and like you see it in the comic shop and you're like, I could
Yep.
have saved 20, $30 on this.
Oh yeah. And that's the thing is like something like that, like ultimately both of those books are good. But something like that, it's like, yeah, it's got Scott Snyder's name attached to it. Of course it's going to make like 10 times its funding goal or whatever. Like,
I mean, I got suckered into backing Oscar Isaac's book. So
yeah.
it's kind of like you see those names, Keanu Reeves or Berserker. It's like, yeah, I'm going to buy it.
Exactly.
So, but how about one more question because it's spooky season. I just want to add one more question. Do you have any traditions for spooky season?
So, I'm trying to think. Specific things I do usually on Halloween. We started this a couple years ago. We do like trunk or treat at my church. I'll participate in that. I'll do some Batman decorations for my trunk, stuff like that. Don't want to go too spooky because it's little kids. You don't want to traumatize them, but you can add some spookiness. But stuff at home and stuff like that, I like to kind of have a watch list for the month. Like I kind of have right now, which I made this list like over a month ago. There's a list of like 16 or 17 horror movies I hadn't seen, or a couple of them that I wanted to rewatch that I hadn't seen in a while. I've already seen half of those during the time, like from the time I made it a month ago to now. I already watched half of them, so I need to update that list a little bit. But yeah, I'll watch movies like that. I'm looking forward. Well, this past weekend I went to see Bride of Frankenstein and The Mummy. They were playing at AMC theaters through like Fathom events and stuff. That was actually really cool. I've seen Bride of Frankenstein before. I love that movie. First time I actually saw The Mummy. The Mummy wasn't bad. And then at the end of the month, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, just 2 nights ago, Nora and I watched Dracula for the first time.
Really? Like the Bela Lugosi one?
Bela Lugosi film. I have a degree in filmmaking, yet I never watched that movie. So
something that maybe I think I'm in the minority on this. I recommend watching the sequel to Dracula, which is Daughter of Dracula, or Dracula's Daughter, one of the two. I recommend that. Me personally, it's a hot take that people are going to hate me for. I like Dracula's Daughter more than Dracula. I really like that movie because a lot of it carries, like, from watching that movie, I saw a lot of horror from the past 2 or 3 decades has been influenced by that type of stuff. I'm like, holy crap. Like, this has some modern stuff, even though it was made almost 100 years ago.
1934 or something like that?
Yeah. I think you're right, yeah.
So, I just got them in the Bela Lugosi autobiography. So.
Yes, I saw someone posted about that. I was like, crap, I got to get that. I got to get the Rod Serling. Okay. Yep. I thought it was. Because there was a Rod Serling graphic novel that came out a couple years ago. I want to get that first, and then I'm going to get the Bela Lugosi one.
By the same person.
Oh, really?
Same creator, same writer.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
The art was pitch perfect. After watching Dracula, you could tell they sat there and just like basically drew the scene.
Yeah.
So
there's have you ever seen Ed Wood?
Oh, yep. Yeah.
Okay, I was going to say you should watch Ed Wood. It's a decent companion piece when thinking about Bela Lugosi's life.
That was my introduction to Bela Lugosi, actually.
Okay. Yeah, perfect.
Because I'm a huge Tim Burton fan, so I had to watch it. Well, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, man.
I loved Dismay Avenue. I'm going to give a little spoiler before I release the advanced review. Manny was the one that told me about it, honestly. So, thank you for coming on. I really hope this gets backed. I know it's going to get backed, especially with the art of Jade Skye. I just love the artwork. Toss the Bell. Those are 2 that I'm like, I could see these in a comic shop.
Thank you.
But where can people find you at too, outside of the Kickstarter?
So they can find me at a few places. You can find me Dismay Comics, that's Dismay Comics, on Facebook, Instagram, and now TikTok. I'm getting hip with the kids. I'm now on TikTok making short videos and stuff. Yeah. I don't mind it. It's interesting. It's a change of flow when it comes to putting my work out there. Plus, it gives me another avenue to advertise my book. But I don't want it to just all be that. Just be like, Dismay Avenue 1 and 2. Here it is. But I'm also posting some other stuff. So it helps with whenever I'm feeling like I want to do a little bit other creative stuff. It's like, oh, there you go. Just put that. You can find me on those platforms. You can find me and my buddy Tio's podcast, Store Brand Comics. You can find that on Anchor, Spotify, a whole bunch of other podcast listening apps, where we 2/3 of the time will come up with like a pitch for a comic or a movie or a TV show or whatever. The other third is just us shooting the breeze, just talking about whatever, philosophizing about Batman or poop or plane etiquette. Batman and poop. That's the most popular episode, the most popular topic. Just random stuff, but whenever we're coming up with the concepts and stuff, it's a lot of fun. We did one today. It was a new concept where Tio came up with it a few days ago, where he'll take some D&D dice and he has a genre for each number, and then on another dice it's a setting for each number, and he'll roll both, and we have to random pitch, come up with a story based on the random genre and the random setting, which is different for us because half the time when we do these pitch episodes, it's like, okay, let's come up with our Marvel idea, or let's come up with our DC idea, or we have a thing that we've done the past year that I like called Crossover Chicken, where it's let's both, without talking to each other before, think of a franchise, and we'll, when we record, both say the franchises, and we have to have a crossover with those franchises. Because one of the ones we had that I think turned out pretty good was, I said Breaking Bad, he said Frankenstein, and we made it work. We actually came up with 2 pitches with that were pretty good.
Yeah, right now I'm taking the ideas for that right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a bad idea. And then just random stuff. There'll be some random anime that Tio knows, and then I'll say The Purge, and then it's form those. And then there was our first one was he said Spice and Wolf, which is like, it's an anime set in like kind of fantasy medieval times, and I was like, Saw, the Saw franchise, and we made it work. It actually worked pretty well. But yeah, this new concept we have, it worked pretty well. We did it today. We got Western and romance. So that was interesting. We did a decent romance / Western. So
it could work.
Have to see how this goes. Yeah.
Yeah, and those podcasts are pretty lengthy too, right?
Sometimes. Yeah, we can't ever shut up. We don't have like a set like hour or set hour and a half. It's like most episodes are 2 to 3.5 hours. Lately, the past year, we've got it down to like average episodes like 2.5 hours. So we're getting better at it. But those first few episodes are like 3.5 hours or something.
I listen to podcasts while working out, and I'm like, oh, I'm listening to the podcast. I'm like, I'm not going to work out for 3 hours.
Yeah. It's a bit lengthy for some of them. Ultimately, how we describe it, it's a hobby podcast for both of us to just talk about nerd stuff, because other than YouTube, as well as me and Tio, like, you can't find a lot of people that are just like love the geeky stuff, like are into the geeky stuff. Usually it's like they're into one specific geeky thing. Whereas like going on your show or Manny's show, or like just that community that's there, you see the geeky culture. You're able to talk about it.
The PCP Bad Batch.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
they've introduced me to so many movies I didn't even know about.
Yeah.
So yeah, and like I went to that thinking it was all comic books, and sure enough, I'm like, I've never heard this film. I'm gonna go find it now. So
Yeah.
well, yeah, and going
That's
off.
perfect.
I mean, we've been talking for 50 minutes, and we could probably be done with Kickstarter and talk for another 2 hours about everything else coming out or that's came out in the last 5 months. So
Yeah.
but after that little tangent about how we can talk about stuff forever, subscribe, find Dismay on Facebook, YouTube, not YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and find back Dismay Avenue, October 18th through November 18th. All the information is going to be in the description of this video. But until then, have a good day and see you at the comic shop.
Y'all take care.